Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Am Not Okay with Day. I am your host, Day. And today we have a special guest. I know I say this about all my guests, but they're all special. This one is extra special because today's guest is my friend Anthony, who is also my previous coworker. And he's just the homie, y'all. We love Anthony over here. Okay. He is so great. I'm so excited for you guys to hear the conversation we're about to have. We talk about mental health, specifically from his perspective as a male in the social work field, his experience, stigmas, all the things. So it was an awesome conversation. I can't wait for you to all to hear it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Here is Anthony. Anthony, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you on, Anthony. You're my second guy on the podcast. So, congratulations to you.
We're number two.
For those of you who guys who don't know, Anthony, he was basically our team therapist. So Anthony and I worked together at my last job, and he and I became so close. As I said, he was our resident unofficial therapist. We all came to him for help. He was the joker. He made our team meetings hilarious. He really made working in a very stressful situation so much fun. So I'm very, very happy to have him on today.
Is
How
that
are
what you
you
guys really thought
doing?
about me though? Is
Of
that what you guys really
course.
felt? Oh wow. Okay. I was being serious. I mean, this was like just, me being serious at work and, trying to actually focus and do the right thing all
Oh
the time.
yeah, yeah. You were totally serious. You were
Yeah,
always on it for the job. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
If I were to get a certain coworker on here, she'd probably disagree, but okay. Anyway, I'm so glad to have you on. I think we're going to have a really good, really important conversation. I can't wait to dive in. But first, if you guys have been listening, y'all know the deal. You know what's coming up is our Some Type of Way. Anthony, are you aware of our Some Type of Way segment?
So I have heard it in previous episodes. I think I may have something, but you
Okay.
go
All
first and
right. I can go first and then you can go. So I'll give you time to think about it. Okay. So let me tell you, I think I've made a decision that I don't want kids. Okay. I feel like, yeah, I'm
okay.
like, no. But I still love kids. Don't get me wrong. I love children. They're great. They're just not for me. Anyways,
Right.
I have a friend here who has two kids. They're like my niece and nephew. They're great. Love them. But my nephew, I feel like he doesn't like me. I feel like he is just like, I feel like I do real good with kids, right? But I feel like every time I visit, he's running away from me. Like he's not here for me. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why? I don't get it. So my friend was going away and she asked us to watch the kids. I was like, of course. So he came over running away, not trying to be here for me. And I was like, girl, when you leave, he's about to have a meltdown. Like, I don't know how this is going to go and he dip out. She's like, don't worry, he needs this. So I'm like, okay. She leaves, he doesn't have a meltdown. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, okay. So the weekend goes on. I actually end up having him sleep with me in my room because it's two of them. One of them was with my mom, one of them was with me. And listen, by the end of the weekend, we were BFFs. And
There you
I was
go.
like, okay, you know what? He's a little sassy. And your girl is not. Your girl has like
You're not
what
with the
we're not gonna
sass.
do. Okay, is this, but somehow he loved it. I'm like, you need to go away more to my friends so I can really like develop this bond that we have, you
Right.
know. So it was really a nice weekend. We had some great bonding experiences, and now we're BFFs. I was like, great. I
I feel
love
like this runs
this.
counter to your some type of way
Okay,
of
and the
not wanting
reason
kids.
is though because the best part about being anti, listen, I have a video of when I'm coming home. I went out on Sunday, I came back and he was like, Auntie, Auntie. This is the thing. I came home and him and his sister were like, "Auntie, you're bad," and I was like, "Yes." And just hearing the word "auntie" had me just like, ah, you know why? Because I can give them back. Okay, his mom can come back and I can say it was awesome, but here you go.
That is a very, very fair point. Yeah.
And so that's why I have declared myself the cool aunt, and I will just be the cool aunt for the rest of the time, and I'm happy with it. So
Okay.
that's what made me feel real good on the inside.
Now
What about, huh?
does this mean that you're actively avoiding having children? I don't know if this is too personal. I'm sorry.
No, not at
Okay.
all. No, I mean, I've worked with kids so much that I'm just like, ugh, this is a big responsibility. And like, you really have to be 100% committed to having kids, I feel like,
Mhm.
and I am not 100%. I'm not, I'm like 1% like, so I feel like, no, I think the biggest thing is I like my sleep. I like to live my life. I don't want to have to think about who's going to watch my kid. Like, I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like for the first time ever, I can live my life like the way I want to live my life. So I'm just like, mm, no. So yeah, I feel like it's, I don't want to say 100% because, things can change, but I'm going to say like a 90% or
Okay.
like, no,
Okay.
I can't. But I mean, hey, no judgment to
Absolutely
anyone who
not.
want to have kids or not. Like we love y'all the same. That's just for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
What
it
about
is what it
you,
is.
Anthony? What made you feel some type of way?
So this one's kind of new for me. As you know, I've been letting my hair grow for the better part of the last year or so. And I don't know if you've ever discussed this in any previous episodes, but uh, it makes me feel some type of way when people ask to touch my hair.
Mm,
I mean, and I work in a predominantly affluent part of Miami, where there are a lot of people who have not seen people with my hair texture, or maybe they just don't surround themselves with people with
mhm.
my hair texture. And it seems like they always just want to touch my hair or have a comment about my hair, whether it's,
What is that about?
I don't know. I really don't know. And it always makes me feel like, man, was I ever like this? Did I ever, say any of
Mm.
these comments or say any of these things? And, how annoyed were people with me whenever I said that, if I did say that, but it is one of those things where it's just like, well, why does it matter? Like, and why do you want to touch it? That's weird. That's odd.
Listen, here's my question to you. Have you ever seen someone's hair and wanted to touch it?
Not particularly. Not
Or
really.
even like, have you ever asked them, like, this is so cool, let me touch this?
Right. I think maybe, maybe I felt like, what, it would be nice to touch that person's hair to see what it's like. But at the same time,
Hmm.
I'm not saying it.
Right. Like maybe you think it, but you don't like go out of your way to say, do that. Like, let me do this. I
Right.
think I talked about it on the podcast before, but I someone actually just put their hand in my hair without even asking.
That's the worst. That is the worst.
Yeah. I was in Argentina and I let it slide because I was like in a different country. Okay, these people don't be seeing this, so like fine. But like I was literally just sitting minding my own business, and all of a sudden I just feel some hands up in there, and I'm like, "Excuse me?" And it was this like old white lady, and I was like, she was like, "Oh, this is so beautiful," and I was just like, "Okay, but boundaries?
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
you
And
can't
and
just do that."
and I work in a middle school, so like some of the kids, they see my hair and it's
Uh,
just like, oh, can I touch your hair? Or like, do you have a perm? And it's like, no, it's not a perm. It's just curly. It's all these things. And it's just like, I get it. They're kids. They really don't understand
mhm.
that it's really not okay to just say those types of things. And it's
Is not.
almost, you know,
And we need to
uh,
stop this. We need to stop crossing boundaries. We
yeah,
need to stop. Expose we need to also expose our kids to things. I mean, hello, we're living in America. I feel like it's not an excuse to say, "Oh, like you don't see this or you've never been around this." Like even if you live in the whitest white of wherever you are, it's not an excuse. Black people
Right.
exist. They're on TV. You can
Right.
see them. Like, I don't get that.
Right. It was super weird. It was like, it was something that I had to get used to quickly, and then like kind of just redirect and, teach people like, no, it's not okay for you to touch my hair. There are
Yeah.
boundaries, and I
So
don't,
how did they respond when you told them that's not okay?
I mean, I think the kids understood that, like, hey, you're an adult. I shouldn't be wanting to touch your hair anyway. And usually when I say boundaries, they understand that, like, okay, yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm
Right.
crossing a boundary. Um, but there is a level of education that goes with it. Like, I have to teach people, like, hey, that's
Yeah.
not cool, you know?
Well, we talked about this before the podcast started about just the new things you learn when you grow your hair out.
Yes.
And this is one of those things,
Yes. This is
unfortunately, definitely people being curious and doing inappropriate things out of their curiosity.
right. Right. I mean, I know my hair's awesome, but like it's
It
mine,
is.
you know?
It is awesome. I want to touch it right now. Oh my goodness. That's great. All right, Anthony, we're going to just dive right in. Okay.
Awesome.
So I said earlier in our little introduction that, of course, you're also a social worker. We met at work. And you know, and thinking about this, I just was remembering when I was in college, and I'll never forget, we had a professor, and in every class that we had with him, he would always point out all the guys. He would say, like, Anthony, he is here. Congratulations. And it's just like, okay, so what about us? Like, we're here too, But there was always this like, oh, here we have a male in the social work field. This is great. This is a unicorn. We have to showcase this. And in every event of social work event, there was always like, we have 5 males in our department, or we have 2 males. This is great. And it was an irritation for me, but it was also like, well, I mean, I guess it's true. And I noticed myself feeling like extra impressed when I saw guys in the social work field, which I
hmm
was like, am I perpetuating this like praising men for being in this area? But I think it comes down to just the fact that we don't see this very often. So, my question to you, Anthony, how did you get into this field? Like, what made you decide this is what I want to do?
So for me, it was interesting because I never thought I would be a social worker. I guess I really never even knew what social work was until I was in college.
Hmm.
Um, and I just remember, like, I always knew that I wanted to go into a helping profession, like even as a child. Like a lot of
Hmm.
kids think I want to be a cop, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a politician or things like that. I always knew that I wanted to help people, and I don't know to what capacity that was. I just knew I wanted to help people, and I can remember. Being a kid and just talking with my cousins. Your cousins are your first best friends and stuff like that. And I would be on three-way with them. And we would literally like just hash out the issues that were going on in the family, or just hash out each other's problems with our friends and stuff like that. And
Oh.
that was something that I always did and I always enjoyed doing. And I always felt like, for me, it was more like, this just makes logical sense to, you know, to handle things this way.
Hmm.
Not realizing that it's more of a skill and more of a talent, that not everybody is able to do these things. So I graduated high school, uh, had no clue what I was going to do. I literally, got my diploma and sat in my house for 4 or 5 months before my parents were like, "Hey, you got to do something." And I decided, okay, cool. I'll go get a job, or I'll go study something. So I went to like the local community college and I took a class, and one class turned into two classes. I started working in an after school program, and I told myself, you know what, I need to keep up with the kids, and I need to make sure that I'm always up on what's really going on in terms of like not only academically what they're experiencing, but like just to kind of broaden myself a little bit. So
Hmm.
I started working on my associate's degree, and I had a mentor at the time. And at the time, I didn't know she was my mentor. It was just more like she was very helpful, and just kind of like the person guiding me. She was a social worker. little
Mhm.
to my knowledge. And one day she just kind of pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, do you want to see what I do for a day?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? Your life looks fun. Let's do it." Um, and she at the time was working for a community mental health agency, doing therapy and home therapy. So I kind of just followed her and shadowed her throughout the day, and just kind of, went to some of her appointments, followed her schedule, you know, and this is a mother with three kids at the time. Um, not that old, not that much older than I am.
Mhm.
But I just noticed, I'm like, you have a lot of free time in between. Like it was just kind of like you wake up, you make your kids breakfast, drop them off at
Mhm.
school, go see a client, come home, clean up, go see another client, go to the gym, go see another client, pick your kids up, go see. I'm like, how do you like have all this time to just be home? So I was
Right.
immediately interested. And she kind of just told me this is social work, and I was just like, okay, so I want to do that. I want the least amount of work, and that's that.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked about that a little bit, and I just kind of explored it a little bit. Once I got to once I got to my undergrad level, and I finished my associates, started at the university. I took my first intro to social work class, and I loved it. And it was just like, this is great. And I had the same experience you had of, oh my gosh, we have a male in here.
Yeah.
And a lot of other students were very upset and annoyed because we couldn't start class if I wasn't there.
Wow, how special were you?
I mean, I thought so, right? We could not, the professor would literally say, well, we don't have Anthony here. And it was me and maybe two other male students in a class of
Mhm.
26, 27. um, and he kind of told us, look around, you're going to see close to 30 other students in here, and you're probably not going to see half of them when you graduate. Just
Mm.
because, a lot of people would get weaned out. So I ended up doing social work partially because I wanted an easy route, or what I thought was an easy route at the time,
Mhm.
which I learned later on that it's not as easy as I thought it was.
Right?
Um, and just it interested me. It was something that has always kind of like, I feel like it's almost been like a calling, to be in the helping profession, and I feel like social work was the best route for that.
Yeah. I love that. So then when you entered this and you realize it's all girls, like what are your thoughts on that?
It's going to be really easy to get a date. I'm kidding. No. It did feel a little weird. It felt, just at first, because it was like,
Mhm.
this is obviously a profession that's dominated by women. And when I spoke to my mentor about that, she kind of pointed out to me, she's like, exactly, this is why this would be beneficial for you. Like
Mhm.
you mentioned it earlier, you're the unicorn. You're the person that nobody really sees. So whenever there is a need for a male, in this pool of social workers, you know, the odds are you're going to get picked because of that. So that was also like really good, like that stuck in my mind, and became one of those things that I used to like kind of say, you know what, maybe this is for me. But it was
Yeah.
absolutely odd at first, like just walking in there, and it was just like, all right, there's two guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, like, it just so happens that your wife is also a social worker. Like, what's
Right.
that like?
So she was also influenced by my mentor. Um,
Okay.
she was bouncing back and forth between majors, and she wanted to do business administration, and she wanted to do a couple different things.
Mhm.
And once she kind of saw what social work was like and the potential that it had, she kind of said, you know what, I'm going to stick through this. I'm going to do this. And we ended up actually taking a couple classes together, graduating together, and it was pretty cool.
Oh, what was that like having classes with her?
So it was awesome for several reasons.
Yeah.
Um, I felt like I always had somebody to back me up. If I wasn't there, she would always be, she was there, and we can
Mhm.
kind of like, share notes with each other, support each other, kind of like push each other when we are, falling behind or anything like
Yeah.
that. So that was pretty awesome. We also banded together with a group of friends
Mhm.
that are still to this day some of our closest friends. Like,
Aw.
it was legit a, kind of friends, living single situation where we all met
Okay.
in college and we became like really tight. And to this day, we are still really tight. Like we hang out with them all the time.
I
Um,
love that.
and
That's
it was super
awesome.
cool. Um, I guess as some of the downfalls of it are, when one person's lazy and the other person's lazy, it, kind of makes it a little bit rough. And
Yeah.
if professors find out that you two are together or you two are dating, it's almost like you become one person. And it's like, well, where
Mm.
is this person? I'm like, I don't know. I don't run their life. Like, I'm not married to them yet. Like it
Yeah.
was a lot of stuff like that happened. Um, interesting story, which is it was hilarious. Is how I created this group of friends.
Mhm.
Um, it was all because of my wife.
Really?
If it wasn't for her, it probably wouldn't have happened. So we've obviously we had some classes together, but we had a different route, um, at the beginning. So we
Mhm.
met different people along the way. And one day we all had this group project that was due, and it was like an interviewing, kind of groups class that we were doing. And in that class, we had to create a group, like create a problem, and hold a group session
Mhm.
there. So you had to pick from 6 to 8 people within your group. And I sat down, and I'm usually not the type of person that, will like walk up to anybody and say, "Hey, can I be part of your group?" I'm more
Mhm.
like, whoever's left, I'll join. Or if somebody asks
Yeah.
me, I'll join. But my wife was like, "No, I know exactly who I want to work with. I want you, I want you, I want you, I want you." And we all banded together. We even had like one person that was just like, "Can I join your group?" And we're like, "Sure, why not? Like jump in." And then we all became a group. And we I don't know how to say this. One of the things that we did was we had the best presentation, the best group in the entire class, and we all worked together in unity because we were all slackers at heart.
Slackers unite.
Slackers at heart. We would literally get together on a regular basis and start with working on this project and preparing and doing everything that we needed to do. And then we would go on a tangent and do something completely different, and ended up never working on anything until literally 3 or 4 days before the assignment was due, before the project was due, where somehow we all banded together. We did everything in 3 days and
Wow.
had the best presentation there.
Honestly, I'm impressed. Okay.
It's my way. It's my way. I don't know.
It is your way, and we love and hate you for it, Anthony. Anthony's the kind of person who never has to study for the test, and then he's gonna come and ace it. And you're just like, how?
It came back to bite me though. It did come back to bite me in grad school. Like in
Did
grad school, oh man, did it. It was
it?
like I thought I was gonna coast through it, and one professor
Mm.
called me out on it, and it was just like, you know what? I need to take this a little more seriously.
Right, right. So, how did like your family and your friends, how did they all react when they find out that, this is what the path that you're going to do? Because as you said, you yourself didn't even really know what was social work. So, what was the reaction of the people in your life that this is now the route you want to take?
Um, I mean, I think that my family was just happy that I was, focusing on school and getting a degree. I was the first one in my immediate family to go to college and finish college,
Yeah.
get my undergrad degree, and fortunately my graduate degree afterwards. So they were just happy that I was going to school, and like they used to use that as the example and always say like, "Oh, well, look how successful Anthony is because
Mm.
he went to school." And I kind of like stopped them from saying things like that,
Hmm.
because everybody has a different path. Not everybody
Right.
is made for school. Not everyone is made for going to college, or there are more successful people that do other things and did not go to college out
Hmm.
there. Some even in my family. But yeah, my family was just happy that I was like, going to college.
Yeah.
Um,
when they now like understand what it is that you do, does that change anything? Because like when everyone finds out that you're a therapist or you're like a mental health person, then you become like the family therapist, or your friend's therapist. Like, did that change, or was it something else? Like, oh, you think that you're better, or something like that? Did you experience any of that?
No, they still think I'm their family
Oh.
therapist. They they frequently ask me, to advise other people, and I always tell them like, so as a therapist, I wouldn't advise anybody.
Hmm.
It would just kind of be, it'd be a different process. But
Right.
I also remind them like we need boundaries, and it is unethical for me to be your therapist. So if you'd like to
Yes.
talk to me as aunt to nephew, then I would gladly talk to you as aunt to nephew, recognizing that I'm not being your therapist at this moment. If you want to talk to me mother to son, more than happy to. But I'm not gonna actually give you like I'm not going to give you a therapy session. Like you should see a
Right.
therapist. That's usually my go-to line.
Do you find yourself like jumping into it even though you're not planning on it? Like you're just automatically turning into therapist. You're like, how did that make you feel? Like, does that happen to you? Or is it just me?
Oh no, I mean that is typically. I really don't turn it off very often.
I know it's
Um,
so hard.
it's just I think it's just natural. It's just the way we think now.
Yeah.
I think that we just think in those terms now. Like how not just how do you feel about this, but just kind of like always assessing, always you know seeing how people are doing, seeing how they're feeling, what's going on in their lives, what may have caused them to act in a certain way. Uh, I always revert back and I always think back to trauma. Like what trauma happened that made you react in this way?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that always kind of like helps, at least for me, explain people's behaviors. Never
Mm-hmm.
excuse the behavior, but explain like maybe that's why they're doing this, and that's why
Right.
they're acting like this.
Right. And so again, I'm coming back to the relationship because as your wife, who's also a social worker, I think she works as a therapist too, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work in y'all's relationship? Are y'all just therapizing each other? Like, what's
Uh,
that like?
I mean, it's very easy to just call each other out on it.
Yeah. Don't therapize me right now.
So yeah, the moment that she tries, it's just like, I mean, come on, like look who you're
I
talking
know
to,
what you're doing.
or vice versa. Like I'll try to do that. I mean, but sometimes it absolutely is helpful. Like we actually, I mean, I don't want to say that we therapize each other, but we do use some of the skills that we learn,
Hmm.
you know, and that within our experience to kind of just deal with what we're going through. Like if
Yeah.
I see that she's looking more down than usual, I kind of go to like, well, what's going to help you feel better? Like, if you're feeling this down, what's going to help you make you feel a little bit better?
Hmm.
And then we kind of work with that. We work with whatever it is that we have in that moment.
Do you think that it's easier or harder when you have the knowledge of how to handle situations and solve all the problems to then deal with your own issues, like in relationships in general? Or, yeah, do you think it's easier or harder to deal with?
So I don't feel like I necessarily have all the solutions ever. I do feel, I just take a pragmatic approach to everything. It's like,
Mm.
what makes the most logical sense in this instance?
Still
Like,
very much thinking like a man.
like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah. What makes the most sense in this? And this is how I dealt, I did a lot of therapy, when we were working together. It was
Hmm.
what makes the most sense for you. And I would never like give you the answer. It was more
Yeah, yeah.
what makes the most sense for this situation that we have right
Hmm.
now. Now, does that affect how I respond to certain situations? Sometimes I find myself going through that thought process of what makes the most sense for me, and also feeling like, well, no, I have some feelings about this, and this is not going to work for me in the moment.
Hmm.
And that's always rough, because it's like I know
Yeah.
that the right thing to do is this, but I don't want to do this, and I don't like this response.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like the other day, I was so upset about something, and I was talking to my friend. I'm like, "Listen, I already know all the things. Like, I should be doing this and that, but I'm mad right now. Okay, so
Right.
I'm not trying to have no empathy. I don't care. I don't want to have empathy. I don't want to think about how the other person's feeling. I'm just mad.
Right.
Okay,
Right. Yeah.
but I think that's a part of it too.
I give myself some time to feel what I feel, and then I have to move on and figure out my response to it.
Yeah.
My wife is really good at just kind of when it's not her situation, if it's my situation and she's kind of talking me through it, she's really good at helping me see what that logic is that I usually would see, and
Mm,
then she'll let me have my moment. She'll literally say like that, like, have your moment.
mm-hmm.
I'll have my moment, whether it's an hour, a day, whatever time it takes. And then she says, well, now we have to respond. Now, what are we going to do? Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think that for most people, like if we remove the emotion of how we feel in the moment about something, like if we just kind of give it a second and let it like sit for a little bit, have our moment, have our emotions, and then we make a decision afterwards, we find that it's not so hard to make those decisions that we thought were so difficult or so challenging.
Yes.
you know
See, I'm learning that right now. Like I've always had trouble with just like, let me just feel this and allow myself to feel the things. And I'm learning to now just like, it's okay if I need a moment. Let me take the moment and then I'm gonna be okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really good.
and
Okay,
and
so yeah, sorry, go ahead.
and one thing that is really interesting about us is that I am the type of person that is more like I need a kick in the pants, to kind of get going with things. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll sit in it too long. I'll sit in my situation a little bit too long. And my wife is the type of person that's a little bit opposite of me, where she needs somebody to like, just stop her, in her place, so that it's like, okay, stop right here. Let's
Mm-hmm.
think about this first, and then let's move on. So in my discovery, in my therapy sessions, I discovered that you know I need to be the person that kind of gives myself that kick in the pants every once in a while. And
Yes.
I really didn't like that. I told my therapist I don't like you for that, but it is what it
Right.
is.
I mean, we love and hate our therapists because they call us out all the time. And
Yep.
then we have to look at ourselves and be like, you're right. But, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
but it sounds like you and your wife, you guys really balance each other out and you give each other what you need, which I think is really awesome. And it doesn't sound like this career path hinders you. It sounds like it just kind of
No.
enhances what's already there, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think we know how to set boundaries for each other, and we
Yeah.
know that our relationship is our relationship, our career is our career, and even our personal life is our personal life is our personal life. So, you know,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
just
that's awesome.
setting boundaries.
So now that you've decided, okay, I want to do social work, I mean, mostly because of the free time that we can have, right?
Mhm.
Then you realize, oh, this is not necessarily what I thought it was. So tell me, what did you think it was? And then what was it really for you? When did you like learn, oh, okay, this is what it is?
So I think that for me early on, I have a lot of experience in mental health. So a lot of different areas. I did some life coaching. I was a therapeutic tech. I worked in foster homes. I worked in a lot of different areas. What I saw from a lot of therapists was, let me just talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can do that. In fact, I was kind of doing that to some degree
Mm-hmm.
without, the knowledge and the background that they had at the moment. Um, Coming out of undergrad with a bachelor's, it was kind of like social work turned out to be case management. I hated
Yeah.
case management. It was, for me, it was the worst. I don't like planning and scheduling and doing things like that, and like finding
Yeah.
resources, and that wasn't for me. That's not what I thought it was. So I realized quickly that for me, social work meant therapy. I need to get into a therapy field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so once I was able to get a position as a therapist in community mental health, I did think it was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I can, kind of create my own schedule and, kind of just do my own thing. And there are opportunities out there like that. But then I realized there was so much more to it. Like there is actual investment in your client and actual investment in the people that you're working with. And that for me, I think the first time was kind of like, okay, this is not going to be just a walk in the park where I'm going to collect a check. And I took on that challenge. It wasn't so much this sucks, now I'm just going to pick another career. It was more like, you know what, fine, like I think that I have the skill set for this. I've have the experience for this. Everything that I've done for the past X amount of years has been to kind of guide me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into it, and I felt like the first couple weeks were a little bit intimidating, because I just felt the weight of, I'm responsible for this person's life,
Mm, yeah.
right? This person's depression is in my hands, and I need to make sure that they don't hurt themselves or that they get out of this. Like this person's anxiety, like I need to find ways and tools and skills and, you know, all these things for them to, reduce their anxiety. And it was a bit of a burden at first, or like
Mm-hmm.
it was just hard to kind of like get over that feeling of like
Yeah.
how responsible I am. And I found myself kind of going home and taking a lot of that with me, which was really rough. Experience teaches you and time teaches you that you can only work as hard as your client is working, and that you do need to like disconnect and really just leave work at work. Some things are obviously require your attention, but you need to leave work at work, which
Mm-hmm.
after that became my motto. And it was just kind of like, while I'm working, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give my clients all the attention that I can give them, and that I'm going to give them my everything that I have within me. But once the clock strikes 5 o'clock, and my notes are done, which notes were almost never done, but once
Okay.
once my notes are done, or once I'm done for the day, I do need to disconnect. And it really became something that, while it was not what I expected or what kind of drew me into the field, it
Mm-hmm.
was still something that was rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like we all, as social workers, we get into the field. First, we decide that we want to do this, and we feel like we're like superheroes and we're going to save the world and we're going to save
Mhm.
everybody from their problems. And then we get into the field and we're like, oh, we can't really save everybody from their problems.
Right.
And there's always just this like reality check like, oh, I can't do all the things that I thought I was going to do. And then you're like, well, either I help some people and the others I just kind of learn to live with that, or I just, yeah, I leave this thing and I'm like, this is too much, I can't. And I
The
feel like I
worst was,
experienced that too.
yeah, the worst for me was feeling like clients would come in, and it was just like, you have the answers, you're the professional. And the first time hearing you're the professional was
Mm.
so weird for me. It was like so surreal to like hear you're the professional, and I'm banking on your background, your education, your experience to help me out of this situation.
It's a lot of pressure, man. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, what do I do?
Right.
It's like everything is, all the stakes are on you. That's why I always
Right.
tell clients, you are the expert of your life. Maybe I'm the professional, but you're the expert of your own
That's a
life.
great line. That is a great way to put it back in their hands and
Yeah.
let them know like you're the one that's in control of our session. Yeah.
Yep. I really relate to everything that you're saying in terms of just like starting out. And you, I remember like when I first started at our last job, you were the one that was like, Dania, relax. This is what you can do, and this is what you can't do, and it's okay. Just chill.
Right.
And honestly, I listen. Literally after our conversation, I was like, "You're right," and I straight up did. Maybe a
So
little bit too
sometimes we chilled a
much.
little too much. Yeah, it was a little too much sometimes. Yeah.
You're I don't want, I mean, your words not mine, slacker mentality. It rubbed off on me just a little bit.
I think that there are more of us out there than people would like to admit, that they'd rather take the easy way out, or right, try to at least try to do the easy things. And listen, slacker doesn't necessarily mean that you're bad at what you do. It just means you're going to find the
Yes.
most efficient way to do it, and you're going to get the work done
Yeah.
period.
And honestly, we're joking about slacker, but you were not a slacker. I think you had really great boundaries. That's just the thing.
Yeah.
We didn't have boundaries because we were like, okay, we have to do this and we have to do this. And we felt like it was possible and you recognize no, this is not possible, so I'm not gonna push myself and do something that isn't possible. I'm gonna do what I can and I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my life. And I feel like that is a recipe for success because you're not setting yourself up for failure. So I thank you for doing that, and it definitely helped me get through the rest of my time in our job.
Right. I mean, I think that that's usually what happens to just about anybody in their,
Yeah.
first months of their job. It's like they want to make a good impression. They want to make sure that, people can, recognize them and know that they're trying their hardest and they're working really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talk about this a lot with, with some of my other friends. People really have this mentality of, I worked harder than you, so I deserve some recognition for it or some sort of
Mm-hmm.
accolade. And it's like, okay, cool. You work harder than me, but that doesn't make you any better. And I think that this is more like a US thing. Uh, you know,
Definitely.
here, like people like to work themselves to the bone. I worked 60 hours this week. I worked 80 hours this week. And it's like, okay, great. And you're probably making a ton of money, but are you really
Mm-hmm.
enjoying life? Is life fulfilling to you, after that? Um, I've always been the type of person that's just like, I want to make sure that I enjoy, you know, my time. I'm always thinking,
Yes.
I'm always kind of like planning and thinking, but it's like, I want to live in the moment and sit in it and just kind of enjoy it.
I love that. And I agree. And I'm here for it too. What is the purpose of life if we're not going to enjoy it? Like, what's the
Right.
point? You
Right.
know? So I'm here for that. Sorry. Okay, so you finally decide, okay, now you understand what this is all about and you're going to continue doing this. Did you like have any kind of stigmas of mental health before you got into this? Or did you have any kind of like biases that you didn't even realize when you got into this field?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that most people would, use the word crazy as,
Yeah.
just interchangeably, and whatever they want to say is like, am I crazy? Or, you're crazy,
Hmm.
things like that. One of the things that I came into the field, thinking was, I'm going to be dealing with a lot of crazy people. Um, and I feel like crazy is not only a subjective word, but it's also
Hmm.
it's derogatory in some case,
Exactly.
and also it's just one of those words that was just like, well, define what quote unquote crazy is, um, and I found that once I stopped using that word in the sense of like someone's mental health, you know um, it was a lot easier to look at a person and to look at people that I'm working with, um, for what's going on in their life and their trauma, or whatever it is that they're experiencing, and
Hmm.
recognize them like, oh well, honestly, like anybody would be going through what you're going would feel the way you're feeling, considering all the
Right.
things that you're going through. Like it's not a surprise that you feel so terrible, and you're feeling depressed when you just lost a major, you know block in your family, like a major person in your in your family, or you lost your job, or things are just not going your way, like, of course, or you just have chemical imbalances that are causing you to feel this way, like it makes sense.
Hmm.
um, so that was one of the things that early on I had to work on and make sure that that was not one of the things that I was just saying, like, and clients would come in and say, oh, you probably think I'm crazy. And I would always have to correct them and say, I don't think anybody's crazy. I think that that's a word that we use very poorly. Like, we don't really know how to
Yeah.
define that word. Um, and then that's usually that's one of the things that I had to change early on. And in terms of like just other stigmas, I did have, um, like one of the things that I found really interesting was that, like, I have a lot of family members, primarily on my mother's side, that struggle with mental health issues. And before learning what I've learned and experiencing what I experienced, it was very difficult for me to understand,
Mm,
like, just depression, for example, or anxiety. It was like, just get over it. Like,
right.
it's it's almost like telling somebody who is working on losing weight and who has suffered or struggled with, obesity their entire life, like just lose weight. It's like, okay, fine, I will. Like one day to the next. Like it doesn't just happen like that, you know?
Exactly.
So whenever I would hear, my mom say, like I'm feeling depressed or I'm sad, and it's just like, well, just be happy, just get over it. And I look back at those moments and with like a little bit of disgust in myself
Mm,
for thinking that way, and it was just really ignorance. Once I learned a little more, it was a lot easier for me to kind of just understand where my mother, where my other family members are coming from, and made it easier to deal with those things. Does that apply to everybody else? Not everybody has the same understanding, but
mm-hmm.
some
Yeah.
people still feel the way they feel regardless, and they'll still tell you, hey, just get over it. Like, okay, cool.
Right. Did you have any issues like addressing your own mental issues that you had?
Yeah, yeah. So I was never the type of person that would want to seek out help for how I was feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was more of a denier, recognizing that it's like I may tell other people like, hey, you should see a therapist. Like whenever somebody would recommend me seeing a therapist, I'm like, well,
Right.
why? I'm fine. Like
I
I'm good.
don't have problems.
Yeah, I'm good. I just cry. I just cry every night. That's cool.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Like the fire burning in the fridge. Like, it's fine. We're fine. We're
Right,
good.
right. Um, and I have moments where I may portray like things are fine, and I am,
Mhm.
you know me well enough to know that like I'm always joking around. I always have a smile on my face, but a lot of times I may be going through some internal battle,
Yeah.
and I don't want to express it because in Latin culture, that's a sign of weakness. It is a sign of weakness for Caribbean people. If you are telling people that you're sad or you're depressed, you're less of a man. You're less, you're less than if you feel that way, if you have any kind of
Mhm.
emotions. Um, so it was tough. And I mean, even seeing my therapist the first time, and I've gone to therapy a few different times in life, and for different reasons. Um, the first time was a bit of a challenge, and I feel like
Mhm.
I just got to a point where I burned out altogether,
Yeah.
between work, going to school, my personal life, and just things that I was doing on a day to day. I literally just burned out, and I didn't know who to go to, and it was like I had things going on, in church, and things going on at home, things going on in school, at work, and it just all kind of came to a head. And I'm not the type of person that will react immediately. I'm more, again, like the type of person that's just kind of sit there and sometimes just freeze, whenever I feel like things are just kind of piling on me. And it took some people, just talking me out of that. My wife was a huge help in that, and just kind of gave me that support that I needed to just kind of recognize, like, what, you do need help, and you need
Mhm.
somebody to talk to. Um, and she was one of the people that was instrumental in helping me develop boundaries. Um,
Yeah.
I was burning myself out volunteering at church daily. Whatever needed to be done, I was there. And it felt less like volunteer work and more like my obligation, while
Mhm.
also having a full time job, internships and work, I mean, and school, and all those things just kind of piling up on you. And she would tell me, she's like, you're burning the candle on both ends, and you're running yourself thin. Like you need to do something different. You need to
Mhm.
change. And that was a big part of how I even, got my master's. I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna quit work, and I'm gonna focus on school. And it was one of the hardest decisions that I had to make, primarily because, again, it's very difficult for Caribbean people to hear you're not going to work and your wife is going to maintain you for X amount of
Mm.
time.
Right.
And that was, oh man, that was a battle in itself. That was a really difficult, time. And she would stand up and she would defend me, and part of me was kind of like, hey, don't defend me too hard, because people need to see that I can defend myself. But
Mm,
at the time, and now looking back, and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad that she was there and she was saying
yeah.
these things and she was helping me kind of develop those boundaries, because without that, I would not be able to, you know, be the person who I am today and be able to kind of just say, you know what? No. That's the most difficult thing to say sometimes. No.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
And people get offended. People get like hurt when you tell them no, like, no, I'm not
Mhm.
going to do it. It's like, just accept it. Like, I'm just not
Exactly. It
going to
is
do
what it
it.
is,
Like,
people.
so
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned being Caribbean. You're from the Dominican Republic, right?
right.
And also you're a black man. So like how do you even deal and overcome those kind of like I would say stigmas that you're kind of fighting on a daily because it just is. Like how do you overcome that?
Oof, that's tough. Because in most places, people will see me, see my hair, and they'll say, "You are not a white guy." My
Mhm.
skin color is looks more like I'm white, but
Yeah.
background, I know I'm not.
Mhm.
um, the way that I grew up, also, I'm not a white guy, right? I'm not. I don't pass. I'm not white passing,
Mhm.
or I'm less white passing than I expect to be.
Yeah.
Um, so it is pretty difficult, because it's almost like I fall into this, you know, category where it's like I'm not white.
Mhm.
I may not be considered black, and for Latin people, we come in all shades, colors, we look
Right.
like just about everything, and sometimes even there I don't necessarily fit. And it was very interesting, like, growing up, middle school and elementary school, I I couldn't fit into any category. So
Mhm.
just kind of identifying with anybody was really challenging at first.
Yeah.
um, and people, one thing that I'm grateful for, where I currently work, is that people don't look at me for any of those characteristics, and it doesn't stand out. And by that I mean, like, my coworkers, my boss, like, these, like, they don't. And maybe
Mhm.
I have you know, my own prejudices from
Yeah.
what I feel like they're thinking, or
Mm.
and it was just so interesting because you know, this whole year that I've been growing my hair, I was just like, I don't know what to do with it. I want to look professional,
Mm.
while in the workplace. I'm working with a lot of white people and a lot of
Yeah.
people who have money, and this is a private school, and I want to make sure that I look professional. And I told myself that, like, the first day, and I was just like, wait a minute, like, what am I saying? Like, and I spoke to a friend of mine, one of my college friends, and he was just like, something that his dad told him was like, the hair doesn't make you the professional that you are. Your acts, the way that you work the job, and the things that you do are going to determine whether people consider you professional. And I just
Mhm.
remember, like, I still had that, that thought in my head, like, they're going to think something of me. I'm going to need to, like, groom myself or make myself different, to kind of match their energy.
Mhm.
And my boss, I made a comment to that, like, that towards my boss, and she was just like, your hair's great. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you thinking that? And immediately
Wow.
it clicked. I'm like, I'm the one that's putting this pressure on myself, about how I look. You know,
Mm.
do the comments come every once in a while? Maybe from the kids, because they're middle
Mhm.
schoolers that aren't, that really just don't know any better.
Mhm.
But I know that from a professional standpoint, I don't get that same
Yeah.
that
You
same
know
experience.
what? I mean, I feel it's crazy because you said like sometimes you feel like it's your own prejudice that you're placing onto, you know, the people that you're around. And honestly, I wonder about that because obviously we know racism is a thing that exists and we know that being we know the standard for professionalism is
Mm-hmm.
just a white person. That's just the standard. But at the same time, I feel like us as black people, we perpetuate the standard because we're like, no, we have to have our hair like this. I mentioned this in an
Right.
episode before about I was in college and my teacher said, you cannot wear twists to an interview because that's unprofessional. You need to wear your hair in a slick back ponytail or it needs to be straight. Like that was literally what my black teacher, because I went to an
Wow.
HBCU, that's what she told me, and I carried that with me because when I went for interviews, hair was slicked back, hair was always in a ponytail. And I would always say, I'll get the job first, then I can be my true self after that.
Mm,
Get the job and then the big curly hair will come out. And that mindset right there is kind of problematic. And
right.
even now, my hair was pink, then my hair was green, and then it was pink, and then I started applying for jobs. I'm like, well, I got to tame it down, and now that's the reason why I went blonde because I'm like, I gotta be professional,
Right.
and it's like, wh- who said our hair is unprofessional? Like, who determined this hairstyle is not professional and this one is? And
Right.
it's just, I'm glad that you're getting out of that. I'm glad that your coworkers and everybody were able to like, let you know like this is not a thing and like no one cares.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
bottom line is no one cares. Like my
They
therapist,
really
her
don't.
hair is pink and it's great. Like, do I think she's any less of a professional because her hair is pink? No.
Right.
It's dumb.
Yeah. I saw an ad yesterday. I was watching TV and I saw an ad. It was the most random ad ever. And it was literally the saying the color of my hair doesn't determine how professional I
I've
am.
seen that commercial. It was a
Have you
hair
seen it?
color commercial.
Yes, yes.
Wearing colored or like my colored hair is not
Right,
unprofessional.
right. I
Yes.
thought it was hilarious, but I was also kind of like, yeah, that's true. Like it really doesn't
Yeah.
matter like what color
I've
your hair
never
is, its
looked at
style.
anyone with hair color and been like, "Nope, don't trust you." Like, what? It's
Right?
just so stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
But I mean, we're not going to be naive and say that doesn't exist because that is a real thing,
yeah.
especially in I think like more corporate jobs. But in our field, we're super relaxed. So,
I mean, even in sports, like recently there was a story that ran about a pitcher who was wearing a do rag. He
wow.
was wearing a do rag under his hat, and the commentator said something about it, made a comment about it, and it was just kind of like, immediately people called it out, and he had to like go and apologize. And I haven't followed up on the story since, but it was just like,
Mm-mm.
oh yeah, no, it's interesting. Like people have like a standard of what they think
Yeah.
fits into a certain box or how people should be, and then like somebody is a little bit off or maybe does something a little bit differently. I think recently like Twitter was going off on women wearing bonnets outside, and it's just like, what do you care?
Yep.
Like why does anyone really care? Like
Literally. Did you see even the other day how this guy was talking about dark skinned girls and like bright colored hair and how
yes.
like can we live? I
Like
mean, who cares? Who cares?
for real, like it's crazy, it's crazy. There you
And
go, I
we
use the
as
word
black
crazy.
people, we need to stop perpetuating these problematic things, honestly, because
Yeah,
it just keeps us, I think, struggling more with that like self-love, and acceptance.
yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole next topic. We're not gonna get into
That is yeah.
that. Okay, coming back to this. So what would you say is the biggest obstacle you've had to face as a male in our field, in a female dominated field? What do you think?
um I think that the most challenging thing and like the biggest obstacle would be I feel like people tend to gravitate more towards females because of this, because you're a therapist but you're a male. It's kind of odd because we haven't seen it before.
Mhm.
So a lot of I would get a lot of clients that would prefer to work with a female, and just statistically women are more likely to seek therapy than men are.
Mhm.
So I would get more female clients who would feel more comfortable with a female therapist. So just kind of like removing that idea and that stigma from, the fact that
Yeah.
just because I'm a male or a female, or, I'm a male or she's a female, it's not going to change, the level of care that you're going to get. It's all about, the skill that I have that's going to determine how well the care goes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
did it work out? Yeah, you know. And I think and the other thing is that it's sometimes just the opposite of that, which was, you know, just feeling flooded with the number of clients because you are a male and, you know,
Yeah.
you're very sought after. And it was just like, okay, I also am human. I need to breathe. Like I can't have 200 people on my caseload, you know, just because, you know, everybody wants a male. A male's not available, you know, and that's unfortunate. You know, convincing other males and other, you know, people that are going to college to become a social worker is not easy. Um,
Yep.
because they don't feel like it's a profession for men. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, I've been around plenty of male therapists, male social workers that, you know, are awesome at what they do, and they, you know, like really just embody, you know, the core beliefs of a social worker, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. How, you talk about your own mental health and like how you were able to recognize that you need help, and that came from your family, from your friends, mainly from your wife. So now that you're at a place where you're pretty comfortable with dealing with mental health and your own mental health, what is something that you would say to encourage other men, other males, to prioritize their mental health needs?
I think men just need to recognize that it's normal to have feelings, and it's normal to feel whatever you are feeling. And, you know, it doesn't make you less of a man to need help from somebody else, or to have to talk it out, or, you know, to have to deal with some of the problems that you're experiencing. You know, we live with this, you know, just this mentality of machismo where it's like I need to be more of a man than the next person, and I can't be too in touch with my feelings because that brings, you know, like it's just this toxic masculinity that
Mhm.
we have. And that's one of the things that, you know, I feel like it doesn't make, you know, I recognize that it doesn't make me any less of a man to get help. And I think that more men need to actually like seek out therapy and, you know, really just talk it out. And, you know, they'll find that they're going to be able to deal with those problems, you know, a lot better than they expected.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, and that's that machismo thing, like where does that even come from? Like who determined it's not manly, or it's not manly to be okay with your feelings? Like sometimes I really just sit and wonder, where did these kind of concepts come from? Because all they do is just keep us down, They keep
Right.
us from being our best selves.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could tell you. I wish, you know, I know where it came from in my family, you know, in terms of, you know, where I got that from, um, you know, where what I saw growing up, and, you know, like I still see to this day where it doesn't affect me nearly as bad as it used to, you know, where before it was just like, okay, well, no, I have to be, I
Hmm.
have to do this because, you know, I don't want to be looked at as a punk, and, you know, or, you know, as less of a man or anything like
Hmm.
that. But now it's just kind of like I don't care what you think, you know, like you can feel how you feel and say what you want to say. I know who I am. I know, you know, where I'm at, you know, and
Yeah.
that's all that matters to me.
And that's really the bottom line. Like, so many times I feel like we're concerned about what people think of us. And the reality is, everybody's concerned about what people think of them. And no one's actually thinking about what other people thinking about you. Like, no one is
Exactly.
thinking about you because they're thinking about their own selves.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
who
Yeah.
cares? Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares except
Nobody
you.
cares. But maybe I don't know if you feel this way. Like this used to happen to me a lot in high school, and, you know, even some through college. Like I always felt like everybody was looking at me.
Yes, me too. You're walking in the hallway, you're walking in the cafeteria, and you feel like all eyes are on you, and
Yeah.
literally all eyes are not on you. Like
I would
all eyes are
literally
on themselves, trying to figure out if they got tissue on the back of their shoe or something.
Exactly. I would look at people and say, "What does that person think of me?" And sometimes that would determine how the rest of my day went. And it was just like, "What the
Yeah.
heck? Like, why do I care whatever this person thinks about me? And I don't even know them." Like,
Okay. Can we start caring about what the people who actually know us and care about us think,
yeah,
instead of like strangers? Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, easier said than done, I know, but like,
Right.
come
Right.
on, guys. I'm
Right.
definitely at a place now in my life where I'm like, listen, we live in my life for ourselves. I don't care about nobody. That's a lie. I
Right.
care about all the people, but I'm
But I'm
really
not expressing
trying.
that.
I'm trying. I'm going to live for me and that's it. Okay.
That's it.
Oh my gosh. Anthony, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we end, we always end with what God has taught me. So, should I go first or what do you
Sure. You
think?
go first. You go
Okay.
first.
So, I mentioned to you before the podcast, but everybody knows who's been listening. I'm now in the job hunt. I'm in the job searching world. And, it's been really interesting because I'm in a place right now where I'm like, I get to make decisions for me without considering anyone else because now it's just me. So, but that comes a bit with a little bit of pressure because I'm like, okay, so that means I have to make like the right decision. I have to make sure that I get the
Right.
right job and I do the right thing. And literally this week, I was talking to my therapist about that, and she said, "What is the right thing? Like, how will you know when you get the
Mm.
right job?" And I'm like, I mean, I won't really know until I get it and I do it and then I see. So then you can't really know what's going to be the right decision or not
Right.
right ahead of time. And she was like, basically you're trying to control things that you can't control.
Mm.
She kind of reframed it to me and she was like, you are able to make decisions for yourself now, and that's freeing because that's not something you could have done before, and the possibilities are endless. So that I don't think that's something that needs to be like, I don't have to add extra pressure on myself because of that. And so it's been a thing where I'm like, I freak out and then I apply for jobs that I don't even want to do. I look at my bank account and I'm just like, oh, child, let me apply for just this job because I just need a job. I just need
Right.
any job. Then I apply for the job and I immediately regret it. And I'm just like, no. And then the people called me and they're like, hey. And I'm like, oh, no. Literally, Anthony, that has happened to me like twice where
In the span of
I
5 minutes.
within a span of 5 minutes, I applied for two jobs specifically that I did not want to do. And I did it only because I was just so desperate. And in the end, I was like, no, what are you doing? Like, you can now make decisions for yourself. That means you can do what you want. You don't have to just like settle in whatever. And I think what's been happening lately is that I have found jobs that I do want, and I've been getting interviews and like they're happening like back to back. Like I will apply for a job today and tomorrow I have an interview, and like next week, like literally every week there's been a new development in terms of the job hunt. And God is just showing me, listen, I got you. I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry. Like my problem is I'll be like, yeah, I got it. Trust you. Then I look at the bank account and I'm like, God, so about that job, like, can we get it like today, like right now?
It's hard to trust
And
God when you ain't got no money.
okay. And God's like, girl, you need to wait a little bit. He's telling me, I got you before. I'm gonna take care of you. And I think the remind just like being having the interviews come so quickly, it also is kind of like boosting my confidence because I've been out of the field for a couple months, and I'm like, do I even still got it? Like, I don't know.
Mm.
And just the fact that I'm getting people calling me back is like, okay, I guess I do still got it.
Right. Right. Right.
So I'm learning. I mean, this whole last couple months has just been a learning about myself and all these things, but it, I'm learning more and more to really place my trust in God because anytime I try to do myself, I get into things that I'm like, I don't want this. So I'm at a place now where I'm like, I'm going to trust you, Lord, and I'm not going to take matters into my own hands anymore because it didn't work out for me before, and that's it. So that is what God has taught me. What about you?
So I think God has taught me that things happen for a reason. And just in the last year, it's been more evident than ever. Um, so we used to live in Tampa, and I did not want to leave. It was, we had our home there. Everything was
Yeah.
great. Everything was great up there, and it was just like to have to restart. It was just not going to be fun. But I was only looking at my thoughts and my feelings in that moment, and I wasn't considering just the bigger picture. You know,
Mhm.
I was, I was working at a place that I felt burnt out at, that there wasn't a lot of room for growth or any growth that I
Mhm.
wanted or, was expecting. The job market wasn't great up there. My wife was miserable up there, being away from family and friends, and then also working a job that was burning her out. Um, the only thing holding us there was our home, like the house that we bought up there, and it was just rough, so moving down, it was another leap of faith, and one that I took almost begrudgingly,
Mhm.
just because it was like, I don't want to come back down and have to restart. And again,
Yeah.
thinking, what are people thinking about me moving up and then coming right back down? Those people that said that I'd be back, they were right.
Mhm.
And it was tough to accept, but in the time that I've been back, I found a job that I'm happy in. I've been able to reconnect with my family. I've you know been able to like really decompress and have more time for mental health and just have more time for self-care, for doing those things that I wanted to do. you know the money may not be significantly better, but it goes much further than it used to.
Mhm.
And like, I understand that things are happening the way they are for a reason. you know we were trying to have a baby while we were up there and it wasn't happening. We come down here and boom, my wife's pregnant, and we're
Yeah.
expecting a baby in October. And it's just so amazing. Like, you think you got it all planned out, things are going to be great, this is where you're going to be, and God tells you like, no, I have other plans for you, and you know it's going to happen for a reason.
I
And
love that, Anthony. And I relate to that too. Like, you already know everything that's going on. I love it. And it's true. Like, you really be having your plans, and God's like, nope, this is the real plan.
like, he just
And at
laughs at you,
first,
like, it's
yeah.
crazy.
And at first, you're like mad. I remember you were not here for it.
I
But
wasn't.
then you're like, no, this is exactly what I actually needed.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you and your growing family and just everything that's going on, that you're so happy at your job. Because I remember before you left, we were all obviously so sad that you were gonna leave. But I remember you lost some of your light. You were not happy.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. Like, I just felt like, oh man, to have to start over, and like, this is gonna be like,
Mhm.
financially, this is gonna suck. And like, it doesn't help that the first month or two I was living with my parents again, and it was like, I don't want to do this again. Like,
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah.
fun, you know.
I know what that's like. And your parents, I love them. They're the best. But just the idea of coming back, you feel like you're regressing in life or something.
Yeah,
You feel
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is this? I'm old. I'm too old for this.
Yeah. And I just feel like, over time I'm noticing that life is setting itself up for just to be wonderful and to be great. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening that it's just like, in the moment I think, well, this sucks, like, this is not great and I don't want this to happen. But long term, when I really, just take a step back and look at the big picture, it's like, you know what, this is going to be okay. This is honestly either going to be a small stumbling block or something that's going to set me up for a better, future. So,
Yes, I love that. Well, Anthony, this is the end. We're so sad.
oh,
But listen, you're coming back. Like, we have to have
absolutely.
you back. Maybe we'll talk
Absolutely.
about something a little lighter the next time.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. And guys, we will see you next week. Until then, bye.
Bye.